Wayne. All right, here we go, guys. Our guest, Gladstone, is a columnist from Cracked.com, creator of the Hate by Numbers video series, and author of the forthcoming novel Note from the Internet Apocalypse. Please welcome Gladstone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I walked into a room wrong. That's a good starting omen. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I write under Gladstone. My first name is Wayne, so people are coming out, Gladstone, it sounds weird to me. Here's the plan for today. I think it's supposed to be 45 minutes, so I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation about freelance writing, tips, how to get into that, how to get published, also about how to get a novel published. I've only done it once. It's not out yet, but I'll tell you at least what I know. And then I made a hilarious joke about joy. Okay. So, who am I? If you don't know, I write, probably best known for writing for Cracked.com. When I made this PowerPoint slideshow, it just kind of looked like Cracked.com is more like Ebony Magazine, because the last 3 articles I had done, they'd picked that. I'm not an expert on that. I do a video series, very infrequently now, fan-sponsored, called Hate by Numbers, where I kind of appear behind that bar and break down pop culture videos and why they suck. And this is probably what I'm most excited about. In early 2014, my novel, Notes from the Internet Apocalypse, is coming out. Did anyone read the short version of that on Cracked? Okay, good. So, like that, but bigger and longer. And if it sells a gazillion copies, I'll write 2 more. I have a trilogy planned. So, swinging for the fences. I want like the Harry Potter money. I think it can happen. If all of you buy 1 million copies, that's like 40 million copies right there. All right, so there's a Facebook page, so that's where I tell people what's going on. The contract is signed. It's supposed to be early 2014. That's also who I am? Okay. All right, so why write for the internet? The money is usually bad. You have to deal with internet commenters who are, often the worst people in the world. Oh, hi. And, it was a good place to start. When I was in college, there was no internet. If you wanted to write, you had to, send off these handwritten letters to these obscure collegiate, literary magazines and then wait 2 months, 3 months, 4 months for, at best, a handwritten rejection, or at worst, no reply, or a form letter. It's very hard to start out, and it's great that the internet, whether it's at your own website or then writing for other people, even if it's for no money, it allows you those baby steps to getting published. So that's really why it's a good place to start. You can make new friends. You can actually get a real job out of it. I got a cool T-shirt from it. This is... Anyone know what that is? That's a chocolate helicopter. So it's I wrote a column about Left 4 Dead, and the good people at Valve said they had this is a joke about a chocolate helicopter. So that's one reason right there. If no other reason, free T-shirt. And also, I'm hosting the X-Files Expo tomorrow, so that's something good that came from the internet. By the way, it is changing up here, right? Okay, good. It's like streaming my porn from my C drive at the same time. So how do you do it? How do you find places you want to write? Well, I suggest that if you like a website that takes submissions, that's the place to start. Because where you want to write is a place that you know well. The biggest key is learning the voice. So ideally, it should be a place you're already a fan of. If it's not, then you have to do work. You have to start reading it. What do they do? What do they like? And so many people even now write me. I can't believe this, because Cracked specifically is so vocal about how to write for them. How do I write for Cracked? And I say, well, go to the homepage and click that link that says Write for Cracked. That's a big... I'm not an expert on that. I'm going to talk about generally how to do this. But in the case of Cracked, it couldn't be easier. They handle that. They shepherd you through the process. There's a writer's room. And my biggest advice to you is to read a lot of Cracked if you want to get into Cracked and write what you see. That applies to anything, though. I mean, it took me, I first started, anyone read McSweeney's, humor website, McSweeney's? Okay, so that's where I first started getting published frequently. And that's not for any money, but it is for a certain group of people, kind of a high cachet, and you establish credibility. I had like 20 things rejected there. And I finally just learned the voice. Once I learned the voice, I submitted about 20 more things, about half of which got published. So you can't go there and say like, well, I like this and I like you, so do you like me? You really have to give them what they want for anywhere you want to get published. And that's what I just said. If you get feedback, just take it for what it's worth. It might be good, it might be wrong, but it's their site, and you want to get published on it. So even if they're wrong, they're sort of right, because that's what they're going to take. They might not see your brilliance. I'm not talking about Cracked. I'm talking about any place online. They might not see your special worth and why you're so wonderful, but it's their site. So start out giving them what they want, and then maybe after you've got 3 or 4 things under your belt, they'll take you a little more seriously, and you can put in this crazy little weird piece that's all yours. Networking. I network a whole bunch just by accident. If I had to do it for real in a job way, if I had to go to a seminar, if I had to join a country club and hand out my business card, I would be very, very bad at it. But I like funny people, and I like talking to funny people, and I like making jokes with funny people. So all my best friends I got like when I was 30, because I was like, oh, you wrote this piece, and I really thought that was funny. And they wrote back, oh, thanks, I like your stuff too. And in a few years, my only friends were like humor writers that I met online that I'd never met in real life. And now I've met some of them in real life, but they're still some of my best friends. That's what Twitter can do. It doesn't have to be for humor. I mean, if you are into writing, science textbooks or travel brochures, everyone is on Twitter, and everyone feels safe being accessible on Twitter because you only have to divulge 140 characters of your soul, and you're not giving out your home address or your phone number, and you can block someone with one click of a button. So talented, famous people make themselves available. And if you link their articles or have a nice reply, some of them actually even talk to you. And there are a few people who follow me on Twitter that I'm just shocked. And when that happens to you, my advice is don't be suck-uppy to try to make that happen. That's just gross. If they do reply, then don't overstep your boundaries. Someone famous might be like, "Oh, that's a good point, huh? Hi, can you come see me I live here." So it's creepy. You don't want to just take it to that next step. There is a comedian who started following me, and I was so excited that I told all my friends, and then I made a rule that I would not talk to him for 6 months. Just to make sure. And I go, wait 6 months. And then I said, thanks, a little reply. And that's what you need to do. Another tip, if you're 19 to 24 and a hot young woman, yes, there are lots of sleazy producers on Twitter who will hand out breaks. I'm not condoning that, but it's really apparent. I find that because someone I respect, it was like, oh, this producer follows this person. Oh, I like this guy's stuff. Who's she? Oh, she's not funny or talented at all. My favorite celebrity is just a predatory sexual maniac. So it's a harsh reality on Twitter. Okay. Now, I'm going to move on to getting a novel published. Does anyone want to write a novel ultimately? Is that something that people are interested in? Okay. I could share this with you. I didn't know anything about this process, and I never wanted to do it, because I have many friends who wrote a book, good books, that did not change their life. Nothing good came from it, and some of these books are some of the my favorite things I've ever read. So I was like, I can't bear the thought of engaging in this long, painful process. I got an idea, though, even when I got the idea for Internet Apocalypse, and I knew it was a novel, I showed a bad version of 1,000 words of it to all my friends to get them to tell me it sucked, so I shouldn't write it. So I'd be like, yeah, there's this thing, I don't know, can you kind of just read it? And my friend's like, yeah, there's not much there. I'm like, screw you, it's a novel. It didn't work. So, I set him up, and I still make fun of him, and he was only doing what I was trying to get him to do. Once you write a novel, you need to outline. People talk to me online, oh, I'm writing this thing, would you read it? Well, what is it? I don't know yet. You have to know. You don't have to know when you're writing it, but you have to keep writing it until you do know, and then you have to not ask anyone to read it until you know. The same thing. Don't, these people on Twitter who might, or anywhere else you might meet them, don't ask them to read your blog. If you think you have a piece on your blog that speaks specifically to something they're interested or to their website, pick that out. Don't just say, here's my website, here's my blog. Be specific. And it's the same thing with novel writing. You need to know what you're working on first. It's hard. It's hard to outline. And what helped me, this is a book, it's really for screenwriting, but I used it for my novel called Save the Cat. Anyone heard that? This is going to get you to buy it. It's written by the guy who wrote Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which I don't know what more incentive you need, but it's actually a really well-written book, and it has actually a beat sheet. It lays out what a story is. And once you see that, you realize you can apply this beat sheet of the breaks to every single film ever made, except for freakish ones like Eraserhead or Memento that goes backwards. Any mainstream like Liar Liar or any Jim Carrey movie that has a big conceit, but then even like Schindler's List applies to this thing. If you hate outlining, I would say buy that book, use that beat sheet, and try to write out your novel according to those things. So that's step one. Step two. When I was a lot younger, I didn't have writer's block, but I would just stop writing because I would write until I was like, well, that reminds me of this. That's been done. That sucks. And I'd stop. I stopped my own ideas so many times. And it was really the Harry Potter series that liberated me from that. Some people, probably no one in this room, but some people slam Harry Potter because it's not very original, right? I mean, Harry Potter takes from everything. Harry grows up in a mean little home with a crappy aunt and uncle, and they're silly, foolish humans. That's all Roald Dahl, right? That's like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in every single Roald Dahl book you ever read. I'm not slamming Harry Potter. Just hold on. And then, and then where's the series going, right? They've got to destroy all those Horcruxes, right? They've got to destroy those totemistic things to a certain place to kill the greatest evil. Well, that's Lord of the Rings, right? That's right. I'm sure J.K. Rowling would not deny that. Then you take something like Umbridge's pen, where he has to write whatever, I forget what he had to write. But as he's writing it, it's carving it into his flesh. That's Franz Kafka. That's the penal colony. That's what that short story is about, a device that carves your own sins into your flesh. And then all that stuff about the gross, treats and the jumping frogs. That's like the Python skit with a crunchy frog. Seen that one? Where they leave the bones in it. The point is not to say that this is why Harry Potter sucks. This was a huge, because I like Harry Potter. And I'm sure J.K. Rowling would say, yes, I love all those things, and all those things were influences. Harry Potter is not a hit because it took from any one of those things. Harry Potter has its own reason for existing. For me personally, what's unique about Harry Potter is that it cheats. It says the world is unfair, and we are going to righten the odds, with magic. It sets up like a moral universe with strict rules and codes of conduct, and then just breaks them every time so Harry can win. And it's just great wish fulfillment. And that was its unique thing. And I think that's what the draw is. So all these other influences, they're just influences. And she's using them knowingly. They're just cultural shortcuts. To explain this point a little bit more, and I'm spending a lot of time because I think it'll free up a lot of you as writers. When, I'm old. So sampling was like a big deal when I was like a teenager. Like, what? What's this? Ice Ice Baby, that's Under Pressure. He sucks. MC Hammer, he sucks. Well, they do suck. But then, Beck came out, and I'm like, oh, wow, he used 3 seconds of a song on a loop, then put a new progression over it, and it's a whole new song. I got to see that sampling doesn't have to suck. And now, of course, we all know that. It's just another tool. And so this is my shorthand. Think of Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice, right? Do, 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 which is the same riff from Under Pressure by Bowie and Queen. What's the catchy good part of Ice Ice Baby? It's do, 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 do. It's the thing he had nothing to do with. If you want to listen to Ice Ice Baby, it's only because of what existed before. But that is not why you read Harry Potter. You don't read it looking for that Kafka reference I just mentioned. Yes, it's there. You can make your point and look smart and impress a room full of Canadians who are like, wow, he is so smart. But no one cares. That's not why you read Harry Potter. And that's my advice as a writer. So when I was so liberated writing this novel because I stole from Hitchhikers, Guide to the Galaxy, I stole from Kafka, Melville, and because they weren't steals. They were really just references, and they were fun for me. And I was confident in what was the original thing of my novel, so everything else just helped me tell the story. I know I just spent the majority of that talk on that one point, but I think it's important, especially for this audience probably, who likes fan fiction and things like that. It's a helpful yardstick, that Vanilla Ice analogy. Is what I'm doing merely duplicative, or am I bringing something new? Is it okay that it's in this other vein? So that's my big advice on how to not have writer's block. I think a lot of it comes from that self-editing. I didn't know how to get an agent until a year ago. And if this happened 10 years ago, I still wouldn't know what to tell you. Because of the internet, I can just tell you, go to agentquery.com. The end. That's it. That is, you have to get the agent, but just about all of them are there. And you can search it by genre and category, and you've got this kind of novel. I got an agent. I sent about 50 cold submissions. I had, a couple of connections who put it in the hands of somebody else. Those never paid out. The agent I ultimately found online, wrote a letter, said, hi, this is me. This is what I will write my book about. It helps to get published if you already have a fan base, which is another reason to maybe write for the internet, because you can develop a following and then, build your social media support. So you can come to an agent and say, I have this idea, and by the way, these are X number of people who seem to read me in general. Helpful, not vital. Having an idea that boils down to one sentence, pretty much vital. Pretty much vital. If you have something, and I hate this term, but since these are terms that people use, like that they think is really sexy, although my agent would never say that. But they're like, ooh, they'll just, yeah, that sounds cool. Oh, that's what all those Twitter books started to sell. Shit my dad says, white girl problems. It's not even a sentence. It boils down to a phrase. Oh, I like that. I know exactly what that is. I know the person who reads that. I can sell that. So that's, and by the way, I didn't know this, so I'll share this with you. Novels have to be written, pretty much. That sounds stupid. But the point is, not novels, but like books or humor books, you can sell those on a proposal. You give like a sample chapter and then an outline. Those get sold before they're written. Novels, they pretty much want to see the whole thing. That's something I learned. Because I was trying to sell it when it was Internet Apocalypse, when it was just the novella on Cracked. Sell the idea to go ahead and write it, because I didn't want to write it if no one wanted it. Didn't work. Had to get the whole thing done. All right, the joy part. You should read my column weekly. There's a new one today, but no one's reading because it's all about Bowie. Watch Hate by Numbers. I haven't done one in 2 months, but I will soon. When my book comes out in 2014, buy as many copies as possible. Also, I'm doing stand-up tonight at Yuck Yucks, which is fantastic just because Yuck Yucks. That's just like the Laughing Barrel, the comedy Snickers. But it's true. So please come. I'd love to see you. And before I open it up to, how are we doing on time? Okay, so we got like 25 minutes? Okay. I'm going to read a short portion from my upcoming novel, and then I'll open it up to questions. The questions can be about things I've written, more about the talk, how to get published. Is Soren Bowie really so dreamy? He is. Met him once. But so let me just, I'm going to sit and read. Let me tell you about the book. the conceit, the fun idea, is that the internet suddenly stops working one day. What was that TV show that only ran a season with all just came out? It's not that. Yeah, no, that's the guess, but the book's nothing like that because everything else still works. Society is exactly the same. There's just no internet. And no one knows why. And then there's a rumor that someone in New York City is still online. The main character's name is Gladstone. But in truth, I just did that because when it started out on Cracked, and I just figured it was weird to have fiction on Cracked, and it would be easier for the audience to get into it if I kind of adopted that persona and made that the protagonist. If you read the whole book, it's not so cool that I named him after me, because he has maybe even more problems than I do. Maybe. The other character, so he's like a misanthropic, angry, mid-30s, Semitically handsome New Yorker. And then there's a 29-year-old gossip blogger, and his friend Toby, kind of like what would Tyler Durden do, straight Perez Hilton. Then he meets this 24-year-old Australian emo-y, gothy webcam girl. And the three of them basically chase these rumors to find out what happened to the internet. That's the background. The part that I'm going to read, they've gotten separated. They're living in this internetless world. And he's trying to find Oz, who used to earn her living as a webcam girl. So he's checking out strip clubs because he doesn't know where else she would find a job. She's, in New York. Let's see. There's okay, because there's one line that's a little. No, sometimes they're like 10-year-olds in the crowd, and I wouldn't let my kids read this, so I didn't want to scar any children. But I think we're safe, right? Okay, all right, good. Oh, we can. Sorry, it's not read silently while I read aloud. It's short. I'm only going to read you 3 pages. I looked for what I thought was a funny, self-contained section. Sorry. I highlighted the dirty part. I don't know if you saw that. To remind me to check before I read. Okay. For the first time as a New Yorker, I'm accepting the things people are trying to hand me because I don't want to miss a lead. I gobble up the useless flyers being fed to me, but the barkers don't know the girls, and the bouncers think I'm a cop, so they don't say much. The girls talk, but only when you drop a 20 for a dance, and they're too used to telling men what they want to hear to be helpful. In one place, a blue-haired girl named Osiris approached me for a dance. Cleopatra eye makeup, torn fishnets, and Doc Martens. Maybe buds with Oz. Oh, his friend is Oz, the webcam girl. Her name is Oz, her screen name. Maybe buds with Oz. It was worth a shot at least. I set my $15 scotch aside in safety and offered up my lap. I instantly got a dirty look from the black stripper I'd rejected minutes earlier, and it made me feel racist, but I didn't have 20s for everyone, and I had to pick the girls I thought Oz would know. That kind of makes Oz sound super racist. In any event, Osiris turned her back and bent to the floor so I could see what was about to be ground into me. Then she went to work. I'm looking for a girl, I said. Well, you found her. No, I don't mean like that. My words were lost into the back of her head. She was sensing the pulse of the music with her outstretched arms while feeling for my rising erection with her ass. That was the line. It was important to get proper alignment to facilitate the grind. What, she asked? Could you turn around? She did a quick mental calculation. Okay, but no touching. No touching. She turned to straddle me, her thighs over mine. I'm looking for an Australian girl, I said. I can be Australian, she said, in quite possibly the worst accent ever. I should have done the accent. No, you don't understand. She took my hat and placed it on her head. Crikey, want to come to the champagne room with me, mate? You want to be an actress, don't you? I am an actress, she said defensively, then returned to character. And a crocodile hunter. What do you say? Want to hit the champagne room? No, I derisory don't, I said. She didn't get it. But I'm looking for a real girl named Oz, about your height and build, actually from Australia. Have you seen her? And that's pretty much the way it went for days. A barrage of 20s, overpriced drinks, and considerable chafing. I will never understand the appeal of strip clubs, and part of me was hating Oz for making me go on this search in the first place. I was at the end of my rope at Flash Dancers today after the latest failed exchange with a Welsh stripper named Misty. I was already doubling up on locations. I headed for the exit as quickly as I could without creating any more friction than necessary in my stripper-grinded jeans. "Brother, hold up a sec," the bouncer called as I passed. He was studying me in a way I was not accustomed to. "I guess you have to go where you don't belong to feel unique." "What you after, man?" he asked, chewing on a toothpick. "I'm looking for a girl from Australia. I can't find her in any of the clubs. She calls herself Oz." "Shit, who gave her a dumbass stripper name like that?" "She's not a stripper." "Not a stripper? Well, that right there might be your problem." "I don't know where else to look. She was a webcam girl. I thought she might be looking for work." "Webcam and stripping, not the same thing. Some of these girls have mad acrobatic skills." "Right. No offense intended," I said. "Seen anyone like that? Ever-changing punk rock hair colors, chain smoking, and, from Australia?" "Nah, man, sorry, I can't help. But I'll tell you what I tell everyone who can't find what they're looking for. Head over to the Rule 34 Club." Rule 34? That's right, Rule 34, like they used to say. If it exists, there's porn of it. I work the door on Fridays. They got everything. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's sort of the big point of the book. Well, one point is seeing how society would try to recreate the things it lost. My theory was that if the internet stopped working, we wouldn't just go back to how we were in the 90s. I know we had some internet in the 90s. You know what I mean? Society would respond by trying to recreate the world it had lost. So there's a scene where, like, Craigslist, all these big community bulletin boards are now actually community bulletin boards. Craigslist with all these index cards, posted to them, which I said, harder to search, less variety, but equal chances of winding up a GIMP in someone's basement if you respond to them. But another point of it is also how the internet has affected the main character in ways he doesn't even realize. But that's all I'll say on that. I hope you'll buy it when it comes out. And I think we got about, 20 minutes or 15 minutes to answer questions? 15 minutes to answer questions. So I don't think there's any microphone. So I'll repeat your question if you have it. And yeah, sure. You'll point? Someone's got to have a question. He has to, or I'll accost you at Yuck Yucks with a hammer. Hi, Martin.
How's it going? All these articles that you've had published and stuff, is there paid in that? Like, you actually get paid?
I do get paid, yes. But it really depends where. I get paid different amounts from different publications. Obviously, the longer you write somewhere and the more you come back and they publish you, the more of a ground you have to try to increase your payment. But the really important thing is first just getting published. Like I said, McSweeney's never paid me anything. But to certain people in the world, that has much more cachet than my 5 years at Cracked. To certain people. To certain other people, other people only knew me from the videos that I posted 6 months after they were run out. Like, I threw them up on Funny or Die. Like, they knew me from that because they read Funny or Die. I've put things on Funny or Die for free. I've got paid at Funny or Die. The internet is usually not going to offer you a ton of money, but it does offer you a ton of experience and a ton of exposure, and if you build up enough, a ton of credibility. And so that's really the way to do it. Some people can make a full-time career of it, but for the way it fits into my life, it made more sense as supplementing income and getting the credibility to publish a novel, which, the Harry Potter money comes in, and then I don't even talk to you anymore, Martin. Like, I lose your number like that. So.
Not related to writing, but I've been asked to ask you to either sing or tell me your favorite Soundgarden song.
I'm not going to sing it. I used to do that in bands. My favorite Soundgarden song is "The Day I Tried to Live." Not that that's relevant to anyone, but I'll tell you why. It's aside from having a tremendous riff and being a tremendous vocal performance, the lyrics are amazing. I mean, Chris Cornell, I think, is such an underrated lyricist. He's screaming. He's got fans who are just like rock, rock, rock. But he's like, really, he's existential. And it was very popular to say you suck in the '90s. Whether it's Tool or Nirvana. But I think he took it a step further. In that song, it's about selling out, but not selling out like to the man. It was just like saying, I'm screaming, I'm yelling, and I tried to be better, and I failed. And then you get like Billy Corgan 3 years later, who's like, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. I'm like, I heard that better 3 years earlier. Sorry, any Billy Corgan fans? Billy Corgan cracks me up, by the way. I've tweeted this one tweet differently worded 6 times, which is just, the world is a vamp. Ow, ow, why are you hitting me? Billy Corgan, age 10. Which is my favorite tweet. I'm sorry.
Where did the original kernel for the story of the internet
That is, I should have told that. It's a good story. So I was at the day job and preparing to go into something, and and I'm like, you know what? I'm exhausted. I am not going to write a column this week. I'll just have to deal. And I get a call from my wife. We're broke. We have absolutely no money. I'm like, I'm going to write a column this week. So I'm like, but I didn't want to write a cracked list. It was exhausting. Like, I wasn't up for it. And I just did sitting there at my job, which I guess, well, I don't work there anymore, so it's okay to say. I just did a free writing. I seriously wrote the first thing that came to my mind, which was not too different from what it ended up. I mean, obviously edited. And it just, one day, and we didn't know why. I'll tell you in a second. Here, I'll tell you what it was. Because, I think we'll do okay on time. Where is this? I lost the... One moment. Well, that was all for nothing. I can't find it. I wrote... Oh, here it is. This was literally the first thing I wrote, and it's still the first thing in the novel. Hardly changed. Boy, it's not going to be anticlimactic now. When the great crash happened, it was nothing like we feared. There was no panic, no tears, mostly just slam fists and swearing. The internet was down, and hitting refresh didn't work. Control-Alt-Delete was also useless. No one had internet anywhere. And it was like, it went on about 50 more words than that. And that's what it was. And I just kept on looking at it, and I polished it. It was about 1,000 words. And I was like, this is not really a column. This is a novel. And I tried to get everyone to tell me it wasn't. And then I got mad at them when they told me it wasn't. And I was, I've known Jack O'Brien, the editor-in-chief for Cracked, for like 7 years. But I've only met him in person about 3. And the first time I met him was the week I wrote that. He was living in New York at the time. And I just told him, like, I don't know if this is a podcast, it's a novel, it's a screenplay. He's like, well, let's just do it on Cracked. And he just like that. And I really owe him a lot for supporting that, because it was very unusual to put it on Cracked. I mean, I tried to make certain concessions, and he molded it in certain ways to make it more palatable to an internet comedy site. But it was still, I thought, well, vis-a-vis me personally, I thought it was the bravest thing he ever did, and made him my hero for that, and a lot of great things came from it. So that's where it came from. Subconscious. Don't know. It's funny that you asked that, because in the last novel I just uploaded, so it'll probably come out in the next 7 days, sometime in there, I mentioned, I addressed that, so you have to wait. No, because really I need the page views. No, I have, as far as articles, Cracked has officially rejected 1 ever. And I'm such a little bitch that I wrote an article about how they rejected it, which they published. I am really the worst person in the world. And I'm still talking about it years later. But as I say, truthfully and magnanimously, in the article that'll come out in the next week, they were probably right. When Amy Winehouse died, within 2 hours of her death, I had written the meanest 1,200-word obituary ever. And I was like, let's get this up right now. It's so hot. Boom. And they didn't do it because it doesn't. Well, let's talk about that for a second. I like my next column, which is coming out, is about things that I love in comedy that cause me pain. One of them is mocking celebrity deaths. I do it, and I usually lose more Twitter followers than I gain by doing it. But I don't do it for everyone. I don't do it all the time. It has to make sense to me internally for it to be funny, right? I don't go, ha, you suck, you're dead. In the case of Amy Winehouse, I saw all these Facebook postings. Oh, the 27 Club, all these people who praised her for living an addictive lifestyle and rejecting rehab, and then cried that she was dead. And the hypocrisy of that was maddening to me. And that's where the satire of my obituary came from. Now, maybe I'm ghoulish. Most people thought so, and they didn't run it. But to me, it was like she was going to be. London officials stopped her from being cremated because they feared a nationwide contact high. That was, jokes like that. It's really bad when you laugh at your own jokes, right? Right in front of an audience. So the point was, though, that isn't Crack's voice, right? So I published for Crack for years. That was not Crack's voice. They have their beliefs. It's their magazine. And they're probably right to reject it because having established their voice, they've established a readership that expects something that conforms to that voice. So A, even if I disagree with whether or not it was funny or appropriate, I think the rejection on their part was correct. And B, I then wrote a column about it called When Is It Okay to Laugh at a Tragedy? Right? Like, I haven't seen any funny Boston Marathon tweets. I haven't heard a good joke about that. There isn't, maybe there's a way to make fun of that if you find an angle, but I haven't seen it yet. My rule is if you can find an angle, it's okay to make jokes about terrible things. You have to justify it. And the more horrible the story is, the funnier it better be. So, one. The answer to your question is one. Okay, 5 minutes. They have rejected a bunch of one-off videos I've made, but they're all on my YouTube page, so you can see them. But one article.
So when you write an article, obviously the thing you're going to run into is people commenting, and that leads to negative comments. How do you deal with negativity?
I talked about that a lot, and I did a similar panel in Edmonton. That's online, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I do think it's an important question. I used to read the comments of Crack more. I read them less now. A lot of people say don't read the comments. Take only the opinion of the few people you respect, and that's it. I can't fault that as being wrong, although I did in Edmonton, but I'm evolving my position. I can't fault that as being wrong, but I don't agree with it. I think if you're going to write and you're going to put it out there, first of all, comedians don't tell jokes behind soundproof glass, right? So you're doing it because you want to make people laugh. And is there an element of narcissism to see the reaction you get from people? Of course there is. Did anyone have to tell you that? Of course not. I'm writing for the internet. I came here and stood and talking to you. I'm going to be a big cesspool of need. Sure, there's narcissism. But then at the same time, I don't think you should apologize for that because no one asked you to publish it. You can read it in your dream journal and read it to yourself every night before bed. You're putting it out there, so why not read the comments? You want to see what's coming back. But you have to know who you are, and you have to know what you think for yourself. This is the story. 4 kinds of people in the world, right? People who like you for the right reasons, people who like you for the wrong reasons, people who dislike you for the wrong reasons, and people who dislike you for the right reasons. And it's only the last category that matters, right? That's why I used to religiously read the comments. I would wade through all the crap, and I would see the one person who said something mean to me, or at least negative to me, who I thought, well, that might be valid. And that was helpful. People praise me, and they're wrong too. I get totally wrong positive feedback. Oh, I love your satire. Well, there was nothing satirical about that piece, but thank you. So I think, I mean, but at the same time, I almost never read YouTube comments because the caliber of the commenter is so low. So I say read them for the most part, but take them for what they're worth, because it's really your job, especially if you're going to be a writer, to really already know what's good and what's not good. Well, lastly, but sometimes you have a blind spot. You know, to you it's clear, and then you're like, oh, I wrote it like that, and it affected an audience like this. Like I wrote a column about that made fun of like people making themselves look pretty in their profile pics. You know, not just like the downward angle with like, you know, the cleavage and this. And it was, I made fun of men and women. And I made fun of myself, like horribly, for like always having a picture that was like that. But I alienated so many women who thought it was so mean and thought I was just picking on like, you know, ugly girls. I was picking on everyone and myself most of all. But I got that from reading the comments. Now, I don't think they were right. I would never do that. But I'm writing for these people, so I should be conscious of how it affects them and try to be, you know, mindful of it.
The only people who would have a problem with that would be the ugly girls anyway.
Well, you know, that was, you know, that's something I didn't reply. But, yeah. But, you know, I really thought I was safe because I think I called myself I was really mean to myself. Like a month ago I wrote it. Yeah, well, go ahead.
How would you compare from cracked articles to novel publishing your experience to the other published cracked writers? David Wong or Brockway?
Well, Brockway's last. It's hard, you know. By the way, Robert Brockway gave me a lot of good advice when I was going through the process, and I'm grateful to him for that. The David Wong experience is just surreal and bizarre. It's wonderful, and he deserves all this credit. But it's, you know, do you know the story, right? I mean, he like just published it like in hand, you know, and like it got like a cult following, and then after that, it was like republished formally. It's not like a template you could emulate for success. It's just an admirable, incredible story and a wonderful thing that happened. My experience was very traditional, and I laid it out in the PowerPoint, so it's different that way, I think. So I think we're all done. Thank you for being a great audience. And tonight at Yuck Yucks, 10:30. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Gladstone again, guys.